The web is a revolution. It's been hailed as the great leveling of humanity, a new frontier that gives us all equal access, equal voice, equal potential. The pioneers who paved the way for the web thought of it as the ultimate empowering tool, and so it came wrapped in an attitude, an online ideology that wants to give power to the people.
The internet is a kind of rebellion. These people were opposed to the notion of hierarchy and authority.
The people who originally created the internet were, by and large, social misfits who wanted to go on being social misfits.
The way the libertarians have found their way to a space that is perfect for them to play out their ideas.
It has completely blown apart and leveled access to communications and collaboration.
The web is a great leveler, of course, is one of the goals of the web.
The leveling ambitions of the online world can be traced back to the counterculture of the 1960s. Amidst the ferment, a particular strand of a philosophy known as libertarianism began to take root. It was a mix of both left and right-wing ideas and rejected state control, the legal system, and censorship, while emphasizing the importance of individual free will. And while the countercultural dream would fade away in the real world, in the 1970s it found an unlikely place where these ideas would flourish: the early internet.
The most concrete legacy of the counterculture is the internet. The values, the organization, the rebellion, the resistance to authority were all encapsulated in the internet.
Cheaper computers allowed the first online communities to develop. The longest surviving and also the most influential was called the Well.
The Well, also known as the Whole Earth Electronic Link, was founded in 1985 by Stuart Brand and Larry Brilliant as a dial-up bulletin board system that could create linked conversations between computers all over the globe. Its first users are mainly writers and computer experts who get their free accounts, and they built the first interface of the platform. As of April 1st, it is officially open for business, and users can join for $8 per month plus $2 per hour. On the platform, groups known as conferences get made on all sorts of topics: parenting, politics, sex, and work. Anyone can join any conference and add their information, opinion, or insight on the topic at hand, making it a new form of public sphere where free speech is key. It evolves into an ecosystem of subcultures, according to Howard Rheingold, the writer of the book The Virtual Community, that discusses the platform. According to him, the Well can be used for finding a date, selling a lawnmower, publishing a novel, or conducting a meeting. People in virtual communities do just about everything people do in real life, but they leave their bodies behind. In September 1986, the first Well Party is organized, where all customers can get together and meet in real life. The community grows tighter, and all stages of life become present. Births are celebrated, Well weddings between users are organized, and parties become a monthly thing.
I don't think the Well is doing what it's doing with any given purpose, but the way I see it, it's going to be a real important kind of phenomenon. I think there are going to be a lot of communities like this because one of the problems in the world is there are no more neighborhoods in the city and neighbors and things like that. But the feeling of the Well is that you've got a lot of neighbors and you don't go to borrow a cup of sugar, but you get some information. And information is probably the sugar of the late 20th century.
One of the more famous users of the Well was John Perry Barlow, the lyricist of the 60s band The Grateful Dead. He gave libertarianism online shape and caused a rapid rise in Well members, his fans.
Barlow came to believe that the internet was a challenge to traditional authority, and by setting information free, it would help set us all free.
You know, you don't have to control people much if you can control what they believe, and you can control what they believe if you control what they have access to. If you can control what they can know, the rest of it is a very simple matter.
Barlow helped start the influential Electronic Frontier Foundation that campaigns for freedom online.
He took the Wells ideal of anything goes and turned it into a constitution, addressed to the governments and business leaders of the world, and declared the freedom and elusiveness of cyberspace.
It wasn't so much as let the people go, it was a statement saying, hey, we're already gone, dude. You know, you're going to have a hell of a time trying to catch us. Your legal concepts of property, expression, movement, and context do not apply to us. We will create a civilization of the mind in cyberspace. May it be more humane and fair than the world your governments have made before.
The web was designed to give all users equal access. You don't need permission to visit a website or to create one. And when you're on the web, there are no governments generating rules and regulations. There's no center and no controlling authority. It's the ultimate leveling.
At least, that is how it was. Since 2010, a lot has changed. Governments have slowly started to seize control over the internet. In dictatorial countries such as China, censorship has been applied to the media, including cyberspace. And in 2014, in Turkey, the president was able to shut down Twitter.
There are reports Twitter has been blocked in Turkey. Some users trying to log on say they were redirected to a statement apparently from the country's telecommunications regulator. It cites 4 court orders as the basis for blocking the site. Twitter says it's looking into it but hasn't confirmed the reason for the outage. On Thursday, Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan threatened to shut down access to the social networking site. His government has been battling a corruption scandal.
But the biggest and most recent shift in the online world has been the goal to repeal net neutrality under the government of American President Donald Trump in 2017. The repeal, if passed, has the following consequences. Internet service providers will no longer have to give every website the same access, and will be able to make websites pay to stay online and load fast. So while big websites like Facebook and Google can easily afford this, smaller competitors might not, and disappear from cyberspace, no longer sustaining a healthy competition to the bigger ones. Besides that, customers might have to pay up as well in order to keep the internet running at a comfortable speed. It is also possible that users need to pay for the quality of their online content. All of this would mean less improvement, less choice, and less equality. It is the direct opposite of the leveling dream that once thrived online. And while many users worldwide have come together to raise their voices against the governmental proposal through petitions and letters, the fact that it might be possible for this plan to pull through is the opposite of what John Burlow's constitution holds. The leveling and the online equality and freedom the net brings are definitely in danger. A different type of online freedom is the freedom of software and programs for computers. When Berners-Lee began his project, it was to connect all computers of different producers to one space, where all could join whatever project they had, with no need to pay for it. There was no business online yet. Amazon and eBay were non-existent. It was a free world without interference of money.
For Bill Gates and others like him, it was simply the biggest business opportunity of the century.
The early internet felt like a radical departure from business as usual. There was this other dimension to human experience, which is really hard to relate to today, that had nothing to do with money. When business came onto the internet, the object of the game was to monetize this thing.
Bill Gates began to sell his software program, BASIC, when other software programmers used to trade their work with peers for free. With BASIC, the first piracy claims were made by Gates, when illegal copies were made of the program. Bill Gates used to be laughed at for his ideas, but in the end held 90% of the market. After the implementation, his product Microsoft became a standard for many computer companies, pushed by Gates himself. The only ones stopping Gates from dominating the internet were governments, battling him in legal battles to stop the monopoly he held.
But the legal battle wasn't just about Microsoft. It was about two completely different ideas of what the web should be.
I think right from the beginning there are kind of two competing views about the web playing out, which still play out now. One is that the web is this home for collaboration, for sharing, for allowing information to be free, for people being able to create things together in open platforms and sharing ideas. And that's embedded in the kind of geek hippie culture of the Homebrew Computer Club right at the start of all this in the 1970s. And then there's another, which is the kind of Bill Gates, Microsoft corporate view, which is, wait a minute, how do you pay the mortgage?
The legal ruling meant Microsoft had had its wings clipped, but the commercial ideology it represented was in the ascendant. And in this, the era of the dot-com boom, it seemed the web was ripe for business exploitation.
Business online came forth in multiple ways. Webshops came into being, which has had its complications for stores offline. Programs for art, video games and subscription-based content are ruling the internet in the forms of Netflix and Photoshop, along with their pirated, free versions. And not only software is especially made for capitalistic purposes. Hardware is as well. Apple has its own complete market, separate from Android and Microsoft, making customers use iTunes, need special telephone chargers, and making Apple products connect easier to each other than to products of other brands. In a way, we are going back to where we started with the reason for Berners-Lee to create the internet in the first place. Unconnected devices with the need to share.
With the development of the World Wide Web was a technological solution built at CERN that meshed with the hippie dream. Little wonder then that the web was set on a collision course with conventional notions of social order and hierarchy.
Well, the revolutionary thing, I think, was that it let people be very free. It constrained them as little as possible. It allows you to publish whatever you like. It allows you to publish in any format. But the really important thing was it could be done on a server without asking anybody else, without having to register.
For most of Western history, you had an authority framework that was vertical. God on top and you on the bottom, and Dad and the Pope and the King and whomever, you know, somewhere in that great white column. And suddenly authority, as a technical matter and as a political matter, was horizontal.
I mean, when you listen to people like Berners-Lee and all the rest of the crowd, they idealize this notion for the first time in human history. We've created something without a center. It can't be controlled. Well, the reason we created it is because these people were opposed to the notion of hierarchy and authority. So it wasn't an accident. They created their ideological wet dream.
You can shatter hierarchies, the hierarchies of the music business, for example. But in the end, once you become known, you have to sign up with one of the recording studios, as in American Idol. The old hierarchies are still there. They're just scrambling to adapt themselves to this new situation.
This power shift is no isolated example. It's a consequence of the web's unique design. Its early supporters believed that a space without rules and regulations would be more equal. But it seems to me that as the web has grown, a paradox has emerged, and the opposite is happening. The very lack of regulation means that those with the most resources can shout the loudest and can impose their brands and their authority.
In cyberspace, the one with the key to attract either users or the love of its creators is the king. It is how Facebook became the biggest form of social media and is now able to add others to its own domain. Mega brands have taken over the internet, and by implementing the repeal of net neutrality, you might get even farther away from the ideal that was presented at the start of the web. But, as stated before, creators also have a say. These are both the creators of the platform itself and the creators of the algorithms controlling the platforms. Now that the internet is its own vast universe, with new people still joining every day, the owners of platforms such as YouTube or Google are unable to decide what to give promotion over other content by hand. Algorithms are implemented in order to show each user what they want to see according to their saved online data. The information these algorithms use differs, but the effect is the same. The platform shows you what it thinks is best for you. You no longer have a say in what you do and do not see online. Randomized content doesn't exist anymore. It gets selected for you whether you want it or not. With this new form of hierarchy, online freedom and choice of content is now also a thing of the past. A lot has changed since the start of the internet in 1990. Where freedom was once the main goal, governments and businesses inevitably took over as time passed. The ideals from way back when have gotten blurry or lost, but that does not mean that all hope is lost for the freedom of cyberspace, for it has only been around for 28 years now. Who knows what might change in the next decades when technology goes where we have never gotten before? Only time will tell.